There is a feeling you might carry around even when things seem to be going reasonably well. A sense that somehow you're not doing quite as much as you should be. That other people seem to be moving forward while you're still trying to figure something out. And even when you accomplish something, the sense of relief doesn't last very long before the mind raises the standard again. A lot of people interpret that feeling in the same way. They assume it must be telling them something true, that they are behind, that they should be doing more, or that they simply need to try harder. But it's worth asking a different question for a moment. Where does that feeling actually come from? Because it might not be a conclusion you reached about yourself at all. It might be something your mind learned to expect. I was reading about the work of psychiatrist Bruce Perry, who studies how early experiences shape the developing brain. One of the things he talks about is how the brain is constantly learning patterns from the environments it grows up in. Not just big events, but the emotional climate that repeats over time. You might think, my childhood wasn't that bad, and maybe nothing dramatic happened. But emotional pain isn't always loud. Think of a flower growing in the shade. It isn't crushed, but it never quite blooms the way it could. Something similar can happen in childhood, when love is present, but emotional attunement is missing. If certain experiences happen often enough, for example, being praised only when you perform well, being compared to others, or feeling like attention has to be earned, the brain starts to organize itself around those patterns. And over time, those patterns turn into expectations about how the world works and about what you need to do in order to be accepted. And this isn't only about being accepted by others. Sometimes it becomes the way you evaluate yourself. If acceptance seems to depend on proving something, then the mind slowly learns another idea alongside it, that what you do is what determines your worth. What makes this interesting is that once a pattern like that is learned, it doesn't necessarily disappear just because the environment changes. You might grow up, move to a different place, surround yourself with different people, but the expectations your nervous system learned earlier can still linger in the background. The brain tends to rely on familiar patterns. If it learned that approval depends on performance, it can continue looking for the same pattern long after the original environment is gone. So the feeling that you're not doing enough can persist even when no one is actually demanding anything from you. It becomes less about what's happening around you and more about what your mind has come to expect. And in a strange way, modern life tends to amplify this expectation. We are constantly exposed to other people's highlight reels, their achievements, their progress, their milestones. And even when we know intellectually that these glimpses are incomplete, the brain still treats them as points of comparison. Without realizing it, the mind starts asking quiet questions all the time. Where am I compared to that person? Should I be further along? Am I falling behind somehow? Over time, these comparisons can start shaping the emotional climate you live in every day. And climate matters more than we usually realize. Just like physical climates influence what kinds of plants can grow in a place, mental climates influence what kinds of thoughts tend to grow in the mind. If the climate around you is filled with comparison, pressure, and constant evaluation, the feeling of not enough will naturally appear more often. Not necessarily because it's true, but because those are the conditions that keep producing it. Which means that the feeling itself might not be a reliable judgment about how much you're actually doing. It might simply be a signal of the climate your mind has been living in. You might avoid asking for help. You might feel uncomfortable when you receive love. You might be staying busy just to avoid discomfort. From the inside, these reactions can easily look like personal flaws. But sometimes they are simply echoes of an earlier environment. The mind learned something about how the world works, and it kept that lesson. So when that feeling shows up, the sense that you should be doing more, it might not actually be evaluating what you're doing right now. It might just be repeating something your mind learned a long time ago, and if that's the case, the real question might not be how to finally do enough, but where did you learn that you weren't?